So hello, this is Colleen O'Hara from Pocatello Paranormal Research, and tonight is our first episode of Speaking of Spirits, which is our brand new podcast. Joining me tonight, Tim.
I'm Tim England, and
Bob?
I like a little bit of barbecue and a little bit of hunting ghosts.
In that order. And Bob?
Maybe.
My name is Bob Bosworth. I love to travel and love to go ahead and see new places, especially places that are creepy. So that's me.
Very good. And tonight's topic is going to be on some of the equipment that we use when we're doing investigations in the field. And we don't have any particular order of equipment that we like or dislike. And every one of us has a different piece of equipment that we really enjoy working with. So, Tim, Bob, why don't you go ahead and share your favorite piece of equipment that we use?
Well, I actually have several. When I first started going out and doing things with Pocatello Paranormal and everything, I was fascinated with the flashlights. The flashlights fascinated me because, you know, sometimes they'll get mad at you and they'll move them, or they'll just make the batteries go dead. And they fascinated me. But then there was another piece of equipment that I really like too. It's that static meter. That static meter to me is very, I think that's more accurate than the flashlight, because you know all the spirits are energy, and those static meters detect energy. So that's a couple of ones that I personally like. What do you like, Tim?
Well, I think my favorite to see in action, and is probably arguably the most out there, if you will, is the dowsing rods. It's cool to see them in action, and it's actually an extremely cool experience to try to use them. It's amazing when you're actually doing it, the things that you can feel with it too.
Oh yeah, a lot of people don't realize that we all have energy, and we can actually feel those ourselves too. So just imagine how well the spirits can if they're full of energy, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, and Bob, when you're speaking of flashlights, so to clarify for people who are listening to the podcast, we're talking about the flashlights that you can kind of twist on and off, right? And you have to set them so that they're barely making a connection. And we ask the spirits then to tap on them, to tap them on and off for yes and no. And I know that there are a lot of teams out there that really don't like using the flashlights because they think it's just a faulty connection. But I think that's true. A lot of times we'll throw out the flashlights, but when they're actually being really responsive to you, like Stricker Ranch in Clyde's room, that was fascinating. That was absolutely fascinating. He was actually working that flashlight, and you could tell, and then he went audible. So disembodied voice. So I think you're right. Flashlights are great. I love the dowsing rods. They're my favorite to work with. But we have a lot of other equipment too that we haven't touched on yet. And the REM pod, right? We've been using the REM pod now for a while.
That one is amazing. You know, I totally agree with you on that one, especially over there at Tough Guys when it went nuts. Oh my heavens, that thing we couldn't get it to shut up.
Yes.
It just went off.
Yeah, and you know, with all of the equipment, things are going to interfere with it, so you have to be really careful where you place your equipment so that you're not getting outside interference. But the REM pod to me it's fascinating when Ender's Hotel, another great use of the REM pod, when things are hitting on the REM pod, it's telling you from what direction. And I really enjoy that.
Well, and as far as the most important piece of equipment for us for proof is probably the camera.
Yes. Yeah. And, over the years with Pocatello Paranormal, we have progressed from really horrible camera systems to really wonderful camera systems. And we have the whole gamut in between. And you're right, the camera is amazing. And unfortunately, it's very, very difficult for us to get that evidence of an apparition on camera. But we can record the activity on all of our equipment with it. We do get shadows. Go ahead.
The only time I know that we caught that apparition was that fuzzy one that was down there on the triangle. And that
triangle piece of property.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did get that questionable whether or not we got that little boy on Main Street. The spirit box. Some people love to use it. I am not one of them. It gives me an instant headache. The noise of the spirit box. Some people say that it's pulling words out of the atmosphere. It's supposed to be a type of communication, but to me it's just noise, and I think occasionally we'll get a response with it, but I have never enjoyed using that. I don't know what your take is on it.
Yeah, I think was Daniel his name that we had at Tough Guy Lanes.
Yeah, and that was like a spirit box, but it worked off of a tablet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was an interesting version, I thought, because it didn't have. I mean, it had a little bit of that staticky noise, but it wasn't overwhelming.
Yeah, it did work a little bit different, and I forget the name of that app. It did work a little different. You're right. I think it was a little easier to work than the spirit box. You brought it up earlier, Bob, was the static detector. The static detector can be found if you put it into your search engine and type ghost hunting static detector. We also call it the rainbow. And as something is moving towards it and over it, it will light up into a really pretty rainbow color. And it's really fascinating to watch somebody, a spirit, work it slowly and back and forth with it. And it's like a little kid when they get a hold of that thing, and they really enjoy working with it. We have used motion detectors in the past. I think they're pretty valuable if you leave them in an area and you're hitting a different area of the house or business, and then they go off. It'll alert you to go to that area. Something that we've used on several investigations, but it's kind of annoying, is the shadow detector. Yeah, it depends on where you place it. So at the gun plant, we put it in the oven, right? Or the big, whatever you want to call that, the kiln. It didn't go off in there. There wasn't any shadows. It was very dark in that area, but it's noisy and there's no way to turn it off. It's not a piece of equipment that I would recommend.
Then there's the voice recorders. We've got a lot of valuable evidence there.
Yeah, I think the voice recorders are probably where we get 98% of our evidence.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about the voice recorders is you need to tag yourself with every little thing, or it could be mistaken.
Oh, well, like if you cough or shuffle your feet or something like that. Yeah, we've gotten pretty trained to do that, and that's something that's very important for people who are just getting into the field. That first off, you don't ever whisper on an investigation to each other, and you make sure that you tag yourself for that voice recorder. If you shuffle, if you creak the chair, if you sneeze, if you do anything, say, that was me, Bob, that was my foot, that was me, whatever. Because when it may be months before you go back and review audio and video from your investigations. And if you don't tag, and if you have guests and you're not real familiar with their voices, you may not know that that's not paranormal. So, very important. We've used things like ping pong balls and crepe paper. Crepe paper is really good to tape in doorways or in areas of a room where people feel breezes. It's a good way to debunk first when you walk into a building. If somebody says, God, I'm always feeling a cold breeze in this room, It's real easy to tape up some crepe paper and watch it. Maybe there's a leaky window or a flow from a ventilation system that they're not aware of. Ping pong balls very easily moved. So we'll use them, we'll tape an X on the floor, put the ball right in the middle of it, and see if it's moved. Tennis balls, go ahead.
We did an investigation at a house one time where we put that ping pong on the bed. And remember how the ping pong ball actually moved? Like
It
6
did.
inches?
Yep, that was good too. And there wasn't a ventilation issue with the house either because we had gone in and ensured that. And that ball was stationary for hours. And then we finally started getting some response with it. We've used stuffed toys. We've used like Matchbox cars. If there's a kid spirit present, it's great to try to draw them out by using toys.
Yeah, I liked it when we had that shadow detector and the voice recorder underneath the stairs in Falls. And we caught that little kid voice in there just laughing and playing. It was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, there's equipment out there. There's things that you can use just around the house. You don't have to have sophisticated equipment. We have tried things like knockoff GoPros. They were horrible. What we haven't tried yet, and we need to try, we're going to, or the dash cams. They do record pretty well, but they don't record very well in low light. So there's all kinds of equipment that you can try if you're just getting started in this field. Just because it's not necessarily targeted or geared towards ghost hunting doesn't mean you can't use it and get a lot of value out of it.
Yeah, they had a starter kit that has, I think these are very valuable because you can debunk a lot of stuff with 2 meters and EMF detectors. They go ahead and detect the magnetic fields around everything. And in that exact same house with the ping pong ball, we were able to go ahead and figure out why they felt really weird going down the stairs. And it was because the refrigerator was emitting EMF tremendously through that wall right where they were. So I think those are very, very valuable. And we use them actually a lot to figure out where like high spots are and where the EMF is. If people are saying that they're feeling watched or feeling sick or dizzy or any of that kind of stuff, we take those out to see if we can find them and make sure it's not something like that. And it's actually paranormal or not.
Yeah, it's something else that we started using a little over a year ago is a thermal camera. And that's been a lot of fun to use. And we have gotten at Enders is the perfect example. If you watch our very first Enders video, we got 3 definite human shapes, very cold human shapes in the basement of the Enders Hotel, where we had talked to a minimum of 4 people down there. So it was fascinating to actually get an image of those 3 people manifesting, and they were large. I mean, and spirits do kind of present themselves quite large. They were quite large. So a great piece of equipment. I highly recommend it. That thermal system that we're using is a thermal system that you can get on Amazon. It is it attaches to your cell phone. It's about $250 to $300. It's super good a piece of equipment. It videos and it takes still images. It's just, I think it's a great tool. Plus, you can use it to see where your leaks are in your house for winterization. So, hey, but I really recommend that piece of equipment. But something that I want to touch on, because we're talking about equipment, and Tim is really valuable for our team because he's really sensitive. Don't forget personal feelings. Tim, why don't you explain some of the feelings that you get?
Well, it's something that I've kind of had my whole life. For me, I have always been able to kind of read people's emotions, and I think that translates over pretty well. For example, when we were at the Rumors Bar, I was sitting at the bar, and the name Roy just came out of nowhere, and I don't know a Roy. And so I just suggested the name, and I believe that right then the dowsing rods went off. So I think it's mostly believing in yourself, honestly, is what it is, and not just pushing those feelings towards the back. If you think it's something, and you focus on it, a lot of times, in all aspects of life, something will come of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think too many times we don't trust what we're feeling. Those spidey senses are telling you something. The hair goes up on the back of your neck. You feel the cobwebs like in your hair, or across your shoulders or your hands. Those cobwebs aren't necessarily there. That's energy manifesting all around you, but it has a feeling like cobwebs. So very important, I think, to key into how you feel. Did you feel cold on your left or your right? Are you feeling overwhelmed, emotional? Do you feel pain? Those things, those reactions in your body are your reactions to what's going on around you, and it's manifestations of what's going on around you. So somebody who's sensitive or an empath, they're going to feel the pain. They could feel the pain of somebody's death. So it's really important, I think, that we pay attention to our bodies.
Yeah, that's probably the most important tool.
Yeah. Yeah, we get real focused on our investigations, right? We set out all this equipment and we get cameras. We'll have maybe 2 or 3 systems going, and we've got cameras going here and there, and we have all of our pieces of equipment all set out in front of us, and we're asking questions and we're hoping for a response. And when you get so focused on that stuff that you may completely disregard the fact that somebody just ran their hands across your shoulders. So, yeah, take a breather when you're on investigations. If you're getting into this, you don't need a pile of equipment to start. You really don't. I would say probably the best thing you can get is a digital recorder that you can download, maybe like a Sony Handycam, something that does good in low lights environments, and maybe a flashlight and a K2 meter. I mean, really, you don't need a whole lot. I investigated for years and years and years with a tape recorder from cassettes. Just that was it. I didn't have money for equipment. And how many of us go out and we go to ghost towns and all kinds of different things, places that intrigue us, and pay attention to your body's reaction. When you get into this field, don't get so overwhelmed with the equipment. It's easy to do.
Yeah, and some people would even argue that the analog is better.
Yeah, right. I think it is, but the problem is it's very difficult to use analog and get it into a format that you can then make a video out of and upload it and share it. We started out analog with a lot of our cameras, the old big clunky handheld camera systems. And there was all of this technology that's supposed to be able to switch analog into to digital, and none of it worked well. And you lose a lot of quality. So at least I'm not familiar with any process that works well. We also used, we don't use it very often, but we have used the full spectrum camera. And the full spectrum gives you a different, full spectrum of light. So the images that you get out of that camera can be pretty interesting, things that you really can't see with the naked eye, the camera. But take lots and lots of pictures wherever you go. Digital cameras, phones, take just constant pictures, because it's really interesting. You may not even feel something manifesting, but it'll show up on a digital image as a shadow or a streak or a movement of light. Are there any other pieces of equipment that you guys can think of that you really like? Maybe even something that you used to use and you don't use anymore and you want to bring back to the investigations?
Well, the only thing I don't like it too much but it's the lasers. I've had good luck with the lasers. They, because the lasers, they like to go out. They like to go out, and you might think it's something, but it's just one of the lasers going out and coming back in, and you have to really watch those really carefully. Sometimes you can get really good evidence out of them, but I've never really had any good luck with them. I mean, we can go ahead and start using them again, but I just never have liked those at all. I don't, you have to tape them down, and sometimes, if they move, then that's great, but I've never had any luck with them at all.
Yeah, we do have some lasers, and we set up a grid with them. And in some cases, I think the one investigation I remember that was really evident was Portland Valley Brewery. And you could see something walk through the beam of light. It wasn't one of us. And I would say if you use those lasers, you set them up as a grid, tape them to whatever surface you want them on so that they're not moving at all or influenced by moving, because boy, that can make a false set of readings for you later on. So you tape them to a surface, but I'd also recommend keeping a light source on in that room. Don't go completely dark with the lasers, because your IR cameras, your night vision on your video recording systems will not pick up the real fine movement if you get movement in that room. Keep a light source in there so that when you're recording it, you're seeing the color of the laser. And I would recommend the green or the red field for a laser grid. I think it's blue that cameras have a hard time seeing, is blue light. Yeah, we could probably bring those back. Something else that we've used are vibration sensors. You can get what they call an array, and they're these little boxes that have a blue light on them and a little copper wire that sticks up. And they're super sensitive to vibrations. So if you set them, for instance, down a hallway where somebody says they hear somebody walking all the time, and then you just run your camera in that hallway, if there's the feeling of footsteps in that hallway, they're going to light up. And we have had them on certain investigations light up as something moved through the room, one right after the other. So they're pretty fascinating, and they're not expensive. So that is an easy thing for some teams to get started with.
I forget what it's called. The thing that hooks up to the Xbox 360.
Yeah. Say again.
It's the SLS.
The SLS, yeah. And it makes the human figure if something's manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'd kind of like to play with that one more. I don't think we've done a whole lot with it, have we?
No, we did use it at the gun plant. We brought it out a couple of times, and you can see, so the thing with that, it's really kind of interesting. Its range of vision is pretty close. So we estimated it to be about 23 feet. And something was manifesting behind us, and you could kind of see it trying to pixelate and figure out what the movement was, but it wasn't close enough for it to make a shape yet. And it is interesting, and I do want to play with it a little bit more. It would be fascinating for us to actually get the human shape, right? It's kind of like the holy grail of ghost hunting. So, yeah, definitely. We've reviewed a lot of equipment, right? So dowsing rods, REM pods, spirit box, flashlights. One thing we haven't talked about is the EM pump.
Oh, yeah.
Bob, go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
I like it because when I'm getting low on energy, I can flip that thing on, and the spirits can go ahead and take off of that instead of taking off of me. And it makes it so much easier, so I can go ahead and go a little bit longer. But basically, all it really is that it's like it's sort of like a transformer. It generates a heck of a lot of electricity with a little bit amount of energy, but it makes it so that they can go ahead and take off the energy off of that and other sources if they're getting low and having a hard time with their energy. We've actually used those a couple times that I can remember, and we flipped that on, and the room went nuts after that. Uncle's house, for instance.
Yeah, you have to be really, really careful where you place it because it will make all of your equipment light up too. So EM is electromagnetic. So it's an electromagnetic pump. So it's supposed to give energy to the room.
And it does.
Mm-hmm. It sure does. You can feel it if you get close to it. You can kind of feel it. Mm-hmm. You know, ghost hunting, we use all of this equipment, and a lot of this equipment wasn't designed specifically for ghost hunting, right? But again, I want to just drill it home. Listen to your body. You'll go into a really active building and you may not get anything on any of your equipment, but your body is telling you things are going on all around you. And it's kind of, what is the meme on Facebook, right? Ghost hunters we spend 1,000 hours in the dark for like one moment of activity. It's pretty much what it relates to. Or we can go to a place that's just like bizarre, crazy while we're there. But when we start listening to the audio and the video, there's nothing there.
We've actually had it to where it would actually delete stuff off of our recorders and our cameras. You know, it was crazy nuts. And then we go to review it and we're like, we saw that, where did it go? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it boils down to being able to control your emotions too. If you can be nice and level and walk into the environment, I think that you're able to get the feeling of the room, if you will. Like sitting down to a game of poker.
Yeah, right. It's pretty interesting. We have a young lady that's joined our team, and she's the youngest person we've ever had on our team. I was watching her on the last investigation, and she saw something out of the corner of her eye, and she ran towards it. That is the mark of a great ghost hunter right there. You don't run from it, you run towards it.
Yeah.
But there's times where you get a feeling of, for the lack of a better term, almost dread. And you really don't want to go around that next corner. And it's not that we're afraid. It's just that your whole body, you have to get past that overwhelming self-preservation mode that's geared into us, where everything in your body's telling you not to go around that next corner. That's that caveman instinct in us, right? Because we're feeling something there. You've got to get past that and go around that next corner. So.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing how people's past can come into play too. Like you were saying, when you walk into those energy places, if you will, and it's kind of cobwebby, I really think that that's the reason I don't like spiders, is I've had that my whole life. And I associated it with spiders before I had any other explanation.
That's a good point. Recap. We've gone through a whole list of equipment. I want to touch on something briefly on cameras. So if you're just getting started out in the field, save the money and get a security system. Those are the cams we use, right? They're security systems that you'll see in convenience stores or outside of your homes, and spend the money and get a decent system. Get a system maybe built for 8 cameras and only comes with 4. You can add cameras to it later. Like I said, we've had every system under the sun at this point. I think right now we've got 4 systems that we can work with. And there's a marked difference in the quality of video now in the very new systems that are out that are HD. They're high, I don't know what you would call them. Maybe Tim help me out, but they're the quality of the video, even HD, is a range, because we have 2 HD systems now. Huge difference between them. Huge.
Yes. Some of them are even 4K now.
That's it. Thank you. The term 4K. You bet. And I think that's our newest system was 4K. And stay away from, I've noticed, and I've worked with him, but the wireless systems. The wireless systems are just not very good unless they've improved substantially in the last couple of years, I found them to get a lot of interference and a pretty grainy quality to the video. When you buy your security system that you're going to use for ghost hunting, spend the money, maybe get a couple of extra long cords with the system. You're going to appreciate that later, because 50 feet doesn't go very far. So that's why we ended up with so many systems. Sometimes in the buildings we cover are so large that we've got 3 or 4 systems running, 16, 20 cameras for several hours. And on the back end of that, remember, and it happens to every single one of us and every single team, no matter where you put that camera, the movement's going to happen just off of it. You can't cover it all. Don't beat yourself up over it. If you are missing things, missing shots, this is a learn as you go process. Don't trust anybody that calls themselves an expert. No one in this field is an expert. We're all learning. This is not something that you can model and predict and have happen over and over and over again. This is not a science. We're all in this field, our field, for our absolute love of the paranormal. We all want that holy grail of evidence. And sometimes we search our whole life for it and we never get it, but it's thrilling still every time we go.
Well, and don't
with
forget
that,
to not overwhelm yourself too, because you have to review all of the footage. So everything you have has to be reviewed. So if it's a one-man operation, don't overwhelm yourself.
Well, even ours, right? We did the gun plant just a few weeks ago, and I still haven't pulled all of the audio and downloaded all of that stuff yet, because we had two days of investigations at that place. I don't even know. It's going to take hours and hours and hours just to download it, to get it to the point where I can distribute it to the team. And then it's going to take months for us to get through it. So we have gone through years on this team where we had an investigation every 2 weeks and everybody burned out. It's going to happen to every one of you. You learn to say no. So just remember that we all have families and lives. I'm hoping that you guys can learn how to juggle your passion for ghost hunting and getting out there and start doing it. And never be afraid to pick up the phone and talk to your local teams. I get calls all the time. We're happy to share our experience, maybe pointers that we've learned. With that, I don't know that we have any other equipment that we can discuss for you tonight. So I want to thank you for joining our very first podcast. And this is a learn as you go process for us. We're going to keep going with the podcast. We're going to keep developing the format and getting this down to a science for you. And we sure hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you, everybody.
Ha 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 ha.